The Oklahoma Sooners starting to get some national respect.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We're going to talk a lot of ball today. We're going to talk a on-3 prediction for a 4-star wide receiver potentially heading toward Oklahoma. What's up with Oklahoma's recruiting right now? Why does it seem like it's a little bit sluggish as we're in spring ball? But first, Andy Staples, Ari Wasserman on the Andy and Ari show had this to say about your Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma could be awesome this year. I don't think that there's any chance that USC is awesome. Oklahoma seems trended upward at least. It might not work, but with their offensive line fixes, hopefully their entire receiver room won't be injured this year, and you get who I think is probably going to be one of the 4 best quarterbacks in college football this year in John Matiere. You have actual tangible improvements that you can cling to. Now, this was a discussion, Jay, about which teams, which coaches were under the most pressure, and Brent Venables, Lincoln Riley are among those, according to Ari Wasserman. But what's your take on that? Could Oklahoma be awesome this year?
Absolutely. And I'm going to sunshine pump it till, till the crows come home, or whatever the statement is. Mainly because everything that happened last season, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. You lose offensive linemen, wide receivers. We talked about this on numerous occasions. And your quarterback's too terrified to throw the ball, even though he has roughly 2.5, 3 seconds to throw it, which is one of the highest, marks in college football. But I want you Sooner fans to understand something. We're now here. We're at the point here in the spring where everybody's going to start gassing up Oklahoma. It's funny, John, me and you were texting back and forth. I told you the problem that I have with all of this is this. They're not going to say that Oklahoma sucks because they don't believe Oklahoma sucks. They're just going to say they suck, but they don't believe it. They actually believe Oklahoma's going to be really good this year, which means Oklahoma's not going to be able to sneak up on anybody. So Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle is going to have to be prepared for the fact that everybody's going to be paying attention to every little move that the Oklahoma Sooners are going to be making going forward, because the defense was actually good last year. You have a competent offense, you probably win 3 more games. That's 9-3, maybe 9-4. That's a dramatic difference than 6-7. So I am now trying to taper expectations, calm the masses down, because you're going to start hearing everybody say the same thing over and over. Man, Oklahoma's roster, they got a really good chance of being a good team this year. Over and over. John, what's your take behind all of this?
I mean, I think it's accurate. I think Oklahoma has got as good a chance as any team that disappointed last year at having a bounce back season and being a contender. So much of it's going to come down to how much does the offensive line improve? And I think that's the key right there. The quarterback position is going to be improved. Wide receiver is going to be better just because it's going to be healthier. There's no way 2 years in a row you're going to suffer as many injuries at wide receiver as you had last year. And so your depth is going to be better. Your starting talent is going to be better. And you're going to have a better opportunity to have a more impactful offense because you've got an experienced leader in John Matiere, someone who, again, a gamer, someone who's going to be able to lead from the front, who's going to be able to show the way. And he can do so many good things for you as a quarterback, both throwing and running. That you fix the offensive line, which I have every faith and confidence in Bill Bedenbaugh to be able to do this offseason. And I think they're off to the races, man. I think that's the thing right there, that if they would have had a better offensive line, say they had all 5 of their starters for the entire 2024 season, I think they're still a 2-win better team, even if you don't have the wide receivers because of all the injuries. If you've got a healthy offensive line that's playing together all season long, you're better than what you were at 6 and 7 when you were missing Jacob Sexton, Jake Taylor, you missed Gary and Hatchett, you missed Troy Everett for a big chunk of the season. Branson Hickman went down early in the season. Michael Tarkin, who you brought in as a transfer, was one of your better offensive linemen, and then he went down with an injury. You were down to your third string offensive tackles at times, offensive guards at times, and that's going to have an impact. So if the offensive line can improve from what it was last year, the offense is going to be much improved.
And you can tell that was a focal point going into this offseason. And also at the same time, remember, Oklahoma really likes the players they recruit. Mm-hmm. That is one thing that we have seen in every single portal cycle. Usually when they go pick up portal guys, they get older dudes, guys that can get them 1 year of play so that the young guys can go ahead and get some experience and play and actually get on the field. The good thing is last season, we got a lot of dudes that was thrown into the fire, and unfortunately, some got beat up. Some did get to do a little something, but you did bring in some guys that you're happy with. They're satisfied with the recruits, and now they're hoping that their development that has been proven over the last few years actually comes to fruition. Derek Simmons has been the big name talked about on the offensive line, as well as Luke Buklinko. Honestly, Buklinko has been getting some pretty good reports over the spring practices so far that he's someone that, hey, if he gets it down, there's a good chance he's going to fight his way in. And then, of course, Michael Fasusi and Ryan Fogier are another couple that we're hearing the most about. So more so my point behind all of this is that, as you said, John, if Bill Beatonbow gets this offensive line humming to where he has at minimum a 2 deep of guys that he can comfortably rotate and play, because I don't care about the starting lineup as much anymore. What I care about is, what does your offensive line look like at the 2 deep? Because you're going to need more bodies. The SEC has proven it. Dudes get beat up on a regular basis. So, John, if we have a solid 2 deep, this team is going to be scary. And then, of course, we started practice again on Tuesday. And you start to see all the footage go out from John Matiere throwing some passes, offensive line blocking, offensive line drills, defensive line movement. John, the propaganda's flying. It's flowing. It's beautiful. Everyone, I'm telling you, come get in the pool. The water's fine. It feels good. Just join us and understand that the only reason why you're getting some pumping is because this offense is going to look completely different than it did last year. And if you had that completely different offense last year and this year again, you probably win 3 more games.
Yeah, come have some Kool-Aid. It's refreshing.
Yeah, it's delicious.
The temperatures are warming up. I was out doing a lot of work in the yard today, and it was hot. I mean, it was only 70-something degrees, but it felt really hot, right?
Felt amazing.
Drink some of that Crimson Kool-Aid. Cool yourself down. It's going to be a good offseason because, again, Oklahoma can't be worse than what they were last year. There's no way. I would stake a lot of things on that. They will not be worse than 6 and 7. They won't even be 6 and 7. Now, the question becomes, are they an 8 and 4 team or a 10 and 2 team? Are they a 12 and 0 team? I don't know. But 8 and 4 to 10 and 2 to me seems like right where Oklahoma's going to fall because they're going to be so much better offensively. I know there are questions along the offensive line. I know there's some questions at wide receiver, but you look at what they're doing in the highlights that we're seeing, and there shouldn't be any questions about wide receiver. There shouldn't be any questions about the passing game. John Matiere is making it work with what offensive line he's got out there. So I feel good about the direction that that's heading. We should feel confident about where this team is heading. I just want to see it on the field, but I feel good about it.
You know what's crazy, too, to even add to that, John, that last year's propaganda was really around the wide receivers, mainly Jaden Gibson. That's what you saw your propaganda around. And then, unfortunately, he got hurt. So you didn't get to see him in the games last year to see if that propaganda was true. But you did get to see some Deion Burks who gave you some highlights until, injury started to settle in as well. Propaganda is another Gibson, but it's Giovanni. You're hearing Deion Burks was practicing yesterday, so you got to see him doing drills and stuff. Satania's giving you something. Keontez Lewis is giving you something. So you're getting more of that propaganda from the wide receiver room. And of course, as we talked about on defense, the secondary's got to be the corner position's our biggest question on defense that needs to step up, or we need to bring in a veteran, or hopefully the veterans show up Gentry Williams talked recently, and we'll talk about that on another show. But to add back to what Andy Staples and Ari Wiseman has been talking about, Andy went on This Is Football with Kevin Clark over on ESPN. The question was asked this, and this is something we're going to have to pose probably coming soon so as we can end this segment, but he asked who will be the next Cam Ward. And of course, we know who Andy Staples answered. Oklahoma's John Matiere. And he went on a nice little rant about it. But we'll talk about that a little later.
Yeah, the transfer portal quarterback is having a really, really nice 6, 7, 8 years. The national title game featured 2 transfer portal quarterbacks.
Yes. It's becoming a thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Can Oklahoma benefit enough to make a national title run? We'll see. The Oklahoma Sooners are trending for a 4-star wide receiver in the 2026 recruiting class. We'll discuss him coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code Locked On College for half off your first year over at monarchmoney.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners are trending for a 4-star wide receiver in the 2026 recruiting class, Norman's own Mason James.
Yeah, and this is not that surprising to me. He's been linked to Oklahoma for a bit. If I'm correct, he's made a lot of visits, and him and Emmett Jones have a very good relationship. And so does Jaden O'Neal with them. So it sounds like he's a wide receiver that, of course, Oklahoma wants him. He's extremely talented, and he's doing a lot of visits. He's taking his rounds and everything. But he had told On3 not too long ago that he's going to probably make a decision sooner or later. And right after he did that, Josh McCuistion from Sooner Scoop dropped a prediction and said that he thinks that Oklahoma has a really good chance of landing him. John, when I watched this film, man, I think the kid has an opportunity to be special. 6 foot, 160. He has a natural ability at route running. He's definitely a top 250 player. I think the consensus composite has him at like 170-ish range. So he's not bad, and he's considered a, pretty solid wide receiver. A lot of schools want his services, which I always like looking at the offer sheet. The offer sheet tells you a lot, especially if it's a school that does well with wide receivers. And he's got some schools on there from Penn State, Oregon, Tennessee, A&M, Texas, Michigan State, Kansas, Florida, Baylor, Arkansas, Alabama, Arizona, Missouri, Washington, Kansas State, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. So he's got a good list. The question is, can Oklahoma seal the deal?
Yeah, that's an elite list of recruiting offers. And the Texas offer just came in, the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
And so, the buzz around Mason James is continuing to grow, and Oklahoma's still in a really, really strong position to land. And he looks like a guy that we talk about, a gamer like John Matiere. Mason James looks the same way. You watch him play, and he's a very competitive player. It's not just, hey, I'm wide open, I can catch the wide open ball. It's, I can make the contested catches. I can fight for my open space. I can battle through contact. I can make people miss after the catch. He's a very, very competitive football player, and someone who you can line up on the outside because of his speed. You can line him up in the slot because of his quickness, and he's going to be able to do a lot of damage in multiple ways for you. Yeah,
and he's OK Prep, which is, of course, I'm always part of the OK Prep agenda. I would like to see more OK Preps at Oklahoma. The Sooners missed out on Caden Jones, the legacy, who decided that he wants to, make his own path, and instead of going to Oklahoma, he's going to Oklahoma State, which totally get it. Totally understand that he doesn't want to follow in his father's footsteps. Some kids want to do their own thing, and I respect it. I like that Mason James is an okay prep, and we have a really good opportunity because, again, I don't like Oklahoma players leaving the state, especially really, really good ones, if you can avoid it. And in this circumstance, he's considered, like in some spots, the number one player in the state of Oklahoma. And so if that's the case, Oklahoma needs to go ahead and seal this deal. That way we've got a guy in state that we can hang our hat on and then leverage him to be able to, do some additional peer recruiting, which is, what we all like to see.
Yeah, right now, the only wide receiver Oklahoma has committed is Daniel Odom, the 4-star prospect out of Florida. And it looks like out of Florida or California. Now I feel like I'm making it up.
Florida. He's California. Because
I don't know why
he's friends with Jane O'Neal. They played as a little league together.
My fault, everybody. Forgive me.
Happens to the best of us.
I don't know who I was thinking of when I was thinking Florida, but yeah, so far Oklahoma is just trending for a lot of really good offensive players. We'll see what quarterback ends up being. I mean, Jaden O'Neal is still committed to Oklahoma, and he's taking some visits. Daniel Odom's taking some visits, and it makes me a little bit curious. Has Brent Venables softened a little bit on his no visit policy? Because I feel like we're seeing more and more of this cycle and last. Could it be the evolving nature of Brent Venables? I don't know, but to have Mason James trending your direction, it helps answer some of the questions at wide receiver if things were to turn with Jaden O'Neal and Daniel Odom.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And it's gotten a little slower on the recruiting side. Now, we're going to talk about that here in the next segment, really in breaking it down. But having Odom there, and then Jaden O'Neal, adding Mason James, which there was a picture, if I'm correct, of all three of them together when they did the visit. What was that? At not Future Freaks, it was the junior day back in January. Yeah. You having a picture with all of them together. Obviously, we know Jaden O'Neal, ever since he's committed, he's talked about, bringing in more recruits. He's been heavy on the recruiting side himself because he wants to play with the best. And that's of course, a major plus. You want your quarterback to be trying to find the guys specifically. And then Jaden O'Neal's also doing a lot of traveling. He's going to be doing a bunch of visits. And granted, we're talking about Mason James, but for Jaden O'Neal, I totally understand why he's doing these visits. And I actually understand why even Brent Venables is probably like, hey, I can't be mad at you. Because initially when he was going to come in his class, they told him that he was the only one at the time. Well, Seth Luttrell's gone. And we had 3 quarterbacks transfer out. You did bring in one, and you bring in 2 of them, and you did bring in a freshman, but you kind of need another quarterback, right? You lose Brendan Zerbrug, you lost Jackson Arnold, you lost Steele Wazzle, right? So you kind of need an additional just in case, because you're probably going to lose another quarterback out of the portal as well. And if that's the case, there's a chance you could lose 2. So you're going to probably need 2 quarterbacks in this class. And that was what Brent Venables had, in conversation have said. He would like to add a second one to this one. More so, it's a lot cheaper to get a quarterback as a true freshman than it is getting them from the portal, which is kind of odd if you really think about it. But it's really true. Freshmen are a lot cheaper, especially now that we're in a salary cap league. But we don't know where that's going to go because the man in charge is going to have to make some decisions on how he wants to proceed forward.
Yeah. Hey, so where does Oklahoma turn now that Caden Jones is off to Oklahoma State?
Man, that's a tough one. Look, I don't think the Jonathan Hatton recruitment is over yet. I think that they have him in too high of a regard to quit. And I've actually heard a couple insiders make mention of hinting on that they don't think that it's over and it's probably not going to end until actual signing day. So hold out a little hope on that. You had, was it Riley Morris, who is committed to Baylor. He's came and did a visit. And Oklahoma's got a bunch of visits coming up in June, throughout all of June for a lot of OVs. So when those official visits hit, especially when we get closer to that, we'll definitely dive into lists and everything that I have compiled already myself from all the social media posts. But there's a good amount of skills position guys on there. The Future Freaks had a lot of running backs. I'm gonna tell you that running backs and wide receivers back at the beginning of March. So for Oklahoma, there's gonna be a good pool of players that they're gonna go after. Let's just put it that way. I just don't know who exactly are the ones that they're going to be like laser focused on, but there is a good group of backs that they're going to be definitely throw their name in the hat of.
Yeah, just got to land Mason James. That'll be a good start. We don't want to see another big time prospect out of Norman go out of state and leave the Oklahoma Sooners high and dry like Charlie Kohler or some others. So let's not do that again. But what's up with Oklahoma's recruiting? Why does it feel like it's kind of slowed down, sluggish? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
As you know, we're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team. Like literally, plus the gear and wherever you want to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room up to 8 people, I don't know about football players, but hey, if you can fit 8 football players, you're doing good. Armada PRO-4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada PRO-4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Jay, the Oklahoma Sooners only have 4 players currently committed to the 2026 recruiting class, and they're all on the offensive side of the ball, which to me is a little bit shocking. But you know that the defensive recruits will come, because Brent Venables is here. Todd Bates, Miguel Chavis, Brandon Hall, and Jay Valai have done an excellent job on the recruiting trail. Nate Dreiling is going to get things done at linebacker. Everybody's already raving about his energy as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know that that's going to spill over into his recruiting efforts as well, hopefully giving Oklahoma a bit of a boost because they're getting pretty thin at linebacker simply through attrition, like guys graduating, guys going off to the NFL. It's you had a couple transfer portal departures that hurt your depth a little bit. But Jay, why is Oklahoma's recruiting kind of where it's at right now? They've only got the 4 players. You got a theory as to what's going on right there?
To be 100% honest, it really kind of feels like it's it's Nagy. It kind of feels like adding in your general manager, him bringing in Taylor Reed as his assistant general manager. To me, I feel like they're evaluating the current roster first. A combination of that and the spring portal, because the only thing good about recruiting is that recruiting is not going to end until December. You've got all year to truly figure out. Now, you don't want to not begin the engagement with players and at least get those conversations started. So, Brent Venables, Todd Bates, DeMarco Murray, Emmett Jones, etc. All, they're pinging these players, getting to know them. They're in group chats, sending them messages on a regular basis saying, hey, following up and all of that. So that they are actually in communication with a lot of these players. But the thing you also know is that they're not... They're doing a more internal scouting. You need to have a better understanding of what players you have, what players you're going to keep around, and make a determination of who needs to kind of go to the portal, who do we think will go to the portal, and who they think they're going to bring in. Because if anything, the major focus is going to have to be winning games this year, not 2026, not 2027. Wins need to happen this year. And so that's what it feels like. That's where the focus is as of right now.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You bring in a new general manager. He's going to have his own thoughts on roster construction, on positional value, on how to manage the salary cap, and how to prioritize the revenue sharing and NIL funding. And so it's going to take a minute to get that accomplished. And then along with that, evaluating the 2026 recruiting class, evaluating the players that the coaches like. Are they actually the players that are good fits for Oklahoma? It's going to be a collective effort now. Jim Nagy is going to be looking at all of that, and he's going to be putting his 2 cents in about, okay, you like this player. Tell me why you like this player. Okay. He's a fit. I can see what you're seeing. Or if it's a player that a coach likes and Jim Nagy's just like, I don't know, they'll have more discussion on it, and they'll continue to build their recruiting board as they go. But it might take some time. But as you mentioned, they're still having those conversations. They're still having those big recruiting weekends and trying to lay the groundwork and build relationships. And they're going to have several more big recruiting weekends over the summer that will be the impetus for a lot of that recruiting momentum. We saw it in the I think it was the 2024 recruiting class, right? Going into the summer, they didn't really have a lot of commitments, maybe 3 or 4. I can't remember exactly how many. Like, they didn't get their first one until March of that cycle.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Newcomb, right? And then the next one was Michael Hawkins after that. And you still only had 2 or 3 guys committed by summertime. But then once summer came, everything started to snowball, and you really started to see Oklahoma making big movements. You still had a couple big fish that you were working on, David Stone being the one that you wanted to lock in. But that summer of 2020, of the 2024 cycle, and back in the summer of 2023, like, that was a huge summer. It was like every week, and sometimes you get 2 commitments in a day and several in a week, and it was just constant. And so I think we'll see something similar here as Oklahoma gets through spring ball. And like you mentioned, as they evaluate what the roster is going to look like right now, who's going to have to be processed, unfortunately, where they need to attack the transfer portal to get some help. Those are going to be the priorities right now.
Yeah. And that's a tradition, I guess you could say, as old as the game itself when it comes to Oklahoma, because again, we typically don't get a lot of commitments until May, June, July. I remember once the Brent Venables era really started, and that's when I even really started my channel, really started going myself. I would have videos and stuff just going like crazy throughout the summer. It was always late May, June, July, all those OV weekends. And then August, the class was just about done. Like, by the time school started for the high school kids, we were just about finished with the entire class. You'd probably get 1 or 2 that will commit throughout the season because, they want to do it at a special game. Like David Stone did it, on one of the national televised games on ESPN. So he knocked that out. You have Asusi right before, so you'll have some that'll pop off throughout the year. Some will do it right after a football game when they do an OV during the season. So there's always a good chance a lot of that stuff can happen. But for Oklahoma, they typically focus it on the middle of the season because the one thing we know Brent Venables has is his visit policy. He asks you, and I think this is the misconception that a lot of people have when it comes to this. So let me go ahead and give you all quick Cliff's notes on it. If you commit and you go do another visit, that's not, your offer isn't getting pulled. That's only if you're doing something, very nefarious or something, right? That's the only time they actually pull them. But in the eyes of the coaching staff is that if you commit and then you go do other visits, you're not really committed. And for them, they're going to continue to recruit over you. And in the end, if you both decide to come together and be done, and you come together and be done. But for Oklahoma, their big thing is that they want guys that say, okay, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to be done with the process, similar to what Clemson does today. And it kind of helps eliminate a lot of the dramatic decommitments throughout the year. As we all know, there's one school right now at the tops of recruiting right now, and they always are in April. And then when the end of July hits, there's like 7 or 8 decommitments by then. And Oklahoma usually finishes the year with like 3 decommitments, which is, you're going to have turnover. That's a good thing. So Don't think that people like I said, the Jaden O'Neal visit piece is specifically because he was told he was the only quarterback. Now they need a second. And so he's just making sure that he's not being pushed out, just in case. And besides that, you're going to probably see a lot of kids do their final commitments with Oklahoma this summer, and then they'll be done. But Jim Nagy's also going to have a major hand in deciding what makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see, do they go with another light class like they did with the 2025 recruiting cycle, or do they jump back up to the 24 or 25 kids that we saw in the previous two cycles? Because the roster limitation situation is going to be interesting to manage for every college football program across the country. Are they going to still try to take big classes, or are they going to go a little bit lighter and then rely on the transfer portal to kind of fill needs along the way? That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much. You thought maybe you had something else to say there? Or
yeah, I was going to say, to add to that real quick, sorry, as we're about to wrap up, is that the smaller class last year and kids jumping in quickly to get themselves committed to, like we saw some early commitments and stuff for 25 and 26. Felt like a lot of them were trying to get in before we found out what the final numbers are. Mm-hmm. Well, now that we know what they are, most of these kids are probably like, okay, let me go ahead and make sure I make the right decision, because I'm gonna be one of few. And the same thing with the coaching staff. I want to make sure that we pick the right person. It'll be one of few, and the classes will be now balanced out. So I think we're at that point, though.
Yeah, it's just going to be fascinating to watch to see how this 2026 recruiting class goes. Again, Oklahoma's got 4 guys committed, all 4 on the offensive side of the ball: Jaden O'Neal, Daniel Odom, Ryder Mix, and Will Conroy. A super underrated offensive lineman who's down there at IMG Academy right now. So basically he's training for football. Like, he's going to school for football as a high schooler. That's worked out pretty well so far with Oklahoma in the past. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. But for sure, hit that subscribe button. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John 9 Williams. You can read my work, cover the Sooners, over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer Sooner.